Welcome to another episode of the Institute for Social Dialogue, the podcast that is here to tell you more about the stories, the challenges, and things that can be overcome related to mining, community, and government. Today we have very special guests from the Joint Problem Solving Savers in the room who are working very close with the Institute for Social Dialogue. They are independent mediators in their own right. And in studio this morning, I have Advocate Arnause Mohlala, who has 27 years as a practicing advocate. He is a senior convener at the and a commissioner. He has a healthy industry and employment experience in mediating large and big cases. And he self-identifies himself as a mediator first. Advocate, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me or having us.
Advocate Lehutjo, Mello, who is a senior commissioner, an institutional restructuring expert, a direct mining sector exposure is what he also possesses under his belt. He also facilitates unions that are facing developmental work. He has done extensively work with communities that are affected and hosting mining companies in various community. Advocate, welcome.
Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's start it here. Maybe start with Advocate Arnause. Advocate, you name yourself as a mediator.
That's correct.
You identify yourself as a mediator. But Joint Problem Solving Savers, you say that you are facilitating. What's the difference between facilitation and mediation? How would you unpack that? How would you help an ordinary person who walks out in the street to understand the difference?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just start by, in terms of the introductions made, that I've got 27 years experience as a mediator, not as an advocate.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so there's
okay.
And Advocate Mello as well, that he's a practicing advocate currently, and not a senior commissioner.
Okay.
So I just wanted to correct that. I consider myself primarily as a mediator. While we are both practicing advocates, we do litigation. However, litigation, at least for me, it must be considered secondary. Mm-hmm. And mediation, I always consider mediation as a primary thing. And why is that? My view is that human beings, we have to talk to each other. We need to talk to each other to resolve our issues before we seek assistance of a third party, which is what mediation is all about. And now, in regard to your question, and just a little bit on this fact, is that litigation means that we have failed to talk to each other as human beings.
Interesting.
Or as parties. And therefore, we need somebody else to hear what our issues are all about. But mediation, we can mediate, we talk to each other. And mediation is traditional. It comes from centuries ago, where people were talking to each other, people could seek the counsel of elders when they've got issues. Not that they had to resolve their issues, they were helping them to resolve their issues. So mediation, facilitation for me is when we have issues that we can't resolve ourselves, we get somebody it can be informal. In fact, it's informal because you don't get somebody to write an award, a ruling, or a judgment for you. You resolve it amongst yourselves. That's what facilitation and mediation is all about. The solution is with the parties. The solution is not with the mediator. It's not with somebody else. It's with the parties. A facilitator, only what a facilitator does is to ensure that the discussion is free-flowing, that there are no blockages between the parties when they are talking. And is to, if there's a box, is to ensure that the box is flattened. So you explore all mediation and facilitation is about exploring everything possible to to have a solution to an issue. And our view, in terms of our background, we come from a background, we were both CCMA commissioners. That's where we were trained. Now, our view is that every dispute has got a solution. Mm-hmm. Every problem has got a solution. So we believe that bring everything on the table and it can be resolved in an amicable way.
Interesting indeed. Let's draw from the example that you've just relayed now and maybe ask Advocate Mello, when a mining-related dispute lands on your table as JPSS, which of the three stakeholders? In one side, you will have the company, one side you will have the community, and another party will be the government. Which one do you find the hardest sometimes to bring on the table?
Thank you. I think all of them are the hardest to bring on the table by the mere fact that it is an interest-based dispute or an interest-based conflict. So each party comes to the table to deal with a particular interest and to advance a particular interest. So it's difficult to say only the community. The community wants access to the mine, either to find jobs or either to find business opportunities, or the mine to develop the community. The mine has a budget, and within that budget, it wants to work within it, and the community wants more, or the mine wants less. So the regulator also finds itself in such a way that it has to come between the two parties. So all of them are difficult to bring to the table. But the question there is that if a dispute lands on the table, what do you do? That's the most important thing. One of the things that you need to do, you need to gather the facts. What is this dispute? You must understand it. It's dangerous to call people around the table to engage them when you don't actually understand what is the issue. Because once you understand the issue, it guides your intervention. It guides you. You need to know, our emotions are very high. Are the parties that are interest-based, are they coming from an honest or a good heart? Or they are coming from where they know that they don't have a stake, and the mind takes a view that, look, if we say yes, we might find ourselves that every year we will have the same demand. So it is very important that every time you have a dispute, you don't rush to call the people around the table. So one of the things that you do is that all of them are difficult, but what is the issue before you? And once you understand what is the issue before you, then you identify which party to call first. Then if you find that the issue is more on the side of the community, you need to go to the community and understand what is the issue, so that when you call the mind from a what? From a knowledge-based intervention.
So it's a difficult balancing act.
It is, but you need to be skillful to not to be seen eager to call people, and when they are here, you don't have anything to do for them. Because remember, whether you call them as a mediator or you call them especially when you call them as a mediator, is where you create a platform for social engagement. So when you call them for social engagement, what issues are you going to present? So if you don't understand the issue, if you have not internalized the issue, if you have not structured your intervention, it becomes difficult to call people.
Just in that context, then what are the earliest signs that a mining-related dispute, that you will realize that a mining-related dispute is moving away from negotiated disagreement towards a breakdown of trust? And how should that be handled? How would you handle that? How do you handle that as professionals?
Can I just say this, and my colleague will add? See, there's something that you mentioned earlier regarding differences in terms of facilitation and mediation. My view is that one of the primary functions of facilitation is to identify risk. And I'm also want to align that with the question that you are raising now, is that facilitators, mediators have to have a side and also have to have some knowledge in relation to the issues on the table. And one of the earliest ways of dealing that is to have an early engagement. And this is what I want to raise as a primary issue, is that as facilitation, parties don't have to wait for a dispute to arise. That's a very critical thing. So all parties have to have ways of identifying what are the possible risks. And those have to be facilitated right from the beginning. If something has been identified as a risk right from the beginning, then you can call in a facilitator. The facilitator is not going to deal with a dispute. It's facilitating a possible dispute to ensure that does not become a dispute. That will then you find that becoming a problem later for the mine and for the community. And it's easy to be able to deal with these both parties sitting down together and identify what are the possible risks. You identify them right early on. The parties sit together and say, what are the possible risks? It can be the mine. The mine can identify the risk on their own. The community, the government or the state can also do the same. And once that has been done, you can call in a facilitator. At the point where if a dispute arises, then it's much, much easier for a mediator to know what they are dealing with and where the dispute arises from and what are the possible solutions to.
Fascinating. And maybe advocate...
Just repeat the question again.
Yes.
Just repeat that question again.
The question was, what is the earliest signs that mine-related dispute is moving away from a negotiated disagreement to a breakdown of trust?
Look, the manner you communicate, the tone that you use, as Advocate Mohlala has indicated that facilitation you are creating a social dialogue. You don't have to talk when you have problems. You have to talk even in good times, how to maintain the relationship. The minute community forum meetings are collapsed, there are no quorums. The minute decisions are taken outside a great channel of communication or engagement, those are early signs. But the other thing is, this thing is deeper. You see, you cannot deal with it from a scientific point of view and say. The other thing is also deals with from the point of recruitment. Remember, every time the mine recruits senior managers and the old ones leaves, it brings a new dynamic. It brings a new perspective. The new person comes, he comes with his own way of doing things. When they are entrenched ways of doing things, you'll find in mines, you'll find that the ER managers or the stakeholder engagement officers are kept beyond retirement. And when they leave, the new guy comes and he changes how things are done. So the how you engage, how you communicate, one of the things that you can see is when people avoid to talk to each other. That is a sign of a breakdown. And once you see one mine's name appearing at the CCMA roll, then you must know that you have a problem, because it tells you that internally, are they using the platforms that have been set up to talk to each other? Because you will expect that the community forums have monthly, quarterly meetings, isn't
Correct.
it? The same as the mine has the monthly and quarterly meetings with trade unions. So all those stakeholders, if they talk to each other, they deal with the problems, they resolve them. One problem don't stay on the agenda for too long. Then you can see that, okay, today the problem is what? Is supply chain. The next quarter supply chain is out of the table. But the minute it stays on the table, again, and it becomes a source of agitation. And then once people believe that the table of negotiations does not resolve issues, then they go to what? Mass-based resolution of disputes. That becomes a what? And again, that's where facilitation comes. The minute there is a risk in the air, possible strike, possible community strike, flaring of tempers, naming, name dropping, those are early signs. What is critical is that you need somebody who can come in and bring the parties together. Yes, the police are there to keep law and order, but the police is not the solution. What is the solution? The parties around the table must see the importance of engaging. If facilitation is not working, you can move to mediation. Why I like mediation? There is a process in mediation we call fact-finding. Fact-finding is not an award. is where, as a mediator, you look at the issue, you go in a side caucus, you say, but your demand is empty. It's where you go and you do language laundering. Can we change how you weight your demand? So those in that fact-finding, and the fact-finding session, if you look even in the LRA, it is there. You look in the LRA when there's a conciliation, it empowers even a CCMA commissioner to do what you call a fact-finding. So if parties are before you in mediation, because you can't do fact-finding in facilitation. Facilitation, the process is in the hands of the parties. In mediation is where the third party has two parties that are at loggerheads. It tries to do what? To bring them together, to narrow the list, to narrow the shopping list. So those are the signs. If you cannot have a facilitation session, you can still have a mediation session, or you can have a hybrid.
I would really like us to concentrate more on discussing about facilitation, because that's what the joint problem solving service you're meant to do. The issue of mediation is quite interesting, and it is a much informative discussion that I think it does give our viewers a better understanding of how the two operates. Just to draw the discussion closer, may I check with you, how do you then change the perception that parties might have that JPSS, you are fiddling in their affairs?
This is very easy. One, you need to be experienced. That's the most fundamental thing. You need to understand when to talk, when not to talk. You need to understand how do you balance the equation. But JPS, remember, it is a joint problem solving.
Correct.
It has to be seen in that way. But you need to understand that as a mediator, I don't fall from the sky. I have past experience. I would have had experience as an arbitrator. I might have written an award against the mine. I might have written an award against the trade union that is involved in that space. I might have written an award against a community member or I might have chaired the hearing. So when you are in that space, you need to be interest-free. You cannot be partisan. You cannot be aligned to a particular voice. Secondly, when you are in the joint problem solving, why must the mind come to it? It's the issue of the skill. Will you find the same skill in the mines? Because when you go to the mines, you have ER, you have a stakeholder engagement. Are they trained facilitators? Are they skilled facilitators? So JPS cannot be seen as a fiddler. It is seen as a what? A forum to encourage dialogue. And what is the purpose of this dialogue? Is to prevent a dispute, is to prevent not talking to each other, is to drive the narrative. It is good to talk to each other, but not for the sake of talking to each other. Also teaching the parties, why is it important to talk to each other? Why is it important to ensure that issues on the table, they move? It's important that when people have a meeting and they must give feedback, the feedback must be dealing with the issues that have been raised. The feedback must not come and say, no, the senior manager is out of town. Then why are we having this meeting? So it cannot be seen like that. But remember, for people to bring disputes to JPS, they must first understand what is JPS. They must first understand the mother body.
Institute for Social Dialogue.
Why are we having a social dialogue?
Correct.
Because this thing comes from a simple principle that is in our constitution, a transformative society. You cannot have a transformative society when people don't deal with the issues that are affecting themselves. In a highly charged up a space like in workspace, JPS becomes a critical. It's not a CCMA. It's not conciliating. It's not mediating. It's not arbitrating. What is it doing? Is creating a platform to talk, find a solution, and also bring a skilled person to do what? To become relevant to the issues that are on the table.
Can I just add this?
Yes, Advocate.
If I can just add that, just like ISD, we are completely neutral. we are not necessarily there for or representing a particular party, whether it be government, whether be community or a
industry.
mine. So when parties come to us, they should know that they are coming to us as a neutral body. That firstly, that the ISD is not part of any of this that I have mentioned.
Correct.
And then the same applies to us as a joint problem-solving service. That we are completely neutral. We are, as I said already, if we can be seen as a body that minimizes risks of both parties and has an interest in ensuring that the interests of all these parties are taken care of, not as a representative, but in a neutral way, and ensuring that we add value to the economy, both of the community, of the mine, as well as the country. That is the value. We have a value add proposition that we have.
And
just before you step off the issue, but remember, for any stakeholder to see GPS not as a fiddler, there's an issue of maturity. You need to separate issues. Are you having an appetite to engage? That's the fundamental issue.
And that must cut across, both on the side of the community, the mine, but also the regulator.
But it weighs heavily on the mine and government.
Correct.
Because mine and government must be seen facilitating engagement to avoid disputes. It's just like, I'll give you a simple example. It's just like in a workplace, there is what you call grievance procedure.
Correct.
Why do you have a grievance procedure? Before it becomes a dispute, you must follow a grievance procedure, either informally or formally. It's the same. JPS is there as a grievance procedure or a grievance platform. Before the community, the mine and government head for a collusion cause, it is a platform where they should engage. And JPS does not say, because we have a panel of two, Mohlala and Mello, therefore you are married to this. Parties are also able to say, no, we want this facilitator to facilitate. You understand? So it has to be understood from a point of neutrality. And neutrality should not be seen to say this person has this dangerous political ideologies or he has a socialistic outlook. No. Neutrality is from the point of encouraging engagement. To do what? To avoid issues to become a dispute. To avoid issues to become a escalation. JPS, lastly, it cannot be a fiddler because it says, let us remain around the table of negotiations. Let us engage. Let us resolve our issues. Let us have what? Rules of engagement. In a case where there is a rumor in the community that the mine is hiring young people and it does not follow a process, how does JPS becomes critical? Instead of fighting, you refer JPS facilitators, and it can serve a very good purpose. The purpose is not to resolve. It now becomes a platform for what? For information sharing. You share information so that when parties leave JPS, they leave with an understanding, they have information, they can process it, and they can avoid fighting.
Advocate Mello, what I'm hearing you is that when I'm listening to both of you, you are saying joint problem-solving service, it is meant to be an early container of dispute before they escalate.
Yeah. Yes. In the CCMA, in the past, they used to have what you call dispute prevention in the DM space.
But here's the catch. When a settlement looks balanced on paper in this context, where communities, mining houses, and sometimes the regulator is in the middle, on paper, the settlement looks balanced. What do you actually check to know whether one party is still walking away worse off? Because there may be somebody who's walking worse off. How do you balance that?
First, we need to ask ourselves, what is a good settlement? The good settlement is where everybody's complaining about, both the community and, because a settlement must resolve the dispute or the problem in totality. Any settlement which is a compromise, the problem is not resolved. You are just sending the parties home to go and do what? Either refresh or rest a little bit. A settlement needs to resolve the problem in totality. So your duty as a facilitator is to make sure, look at the settlement. Is it resolving the dispute in totality? Because there's nothing wrong as a facilitator when you facilitate to look at the dispute or the issue on the table and say, this will not fly. There's nothing like a good facilitator has to do that and has to also assist the parties how to coin the issue, how to harvest the little that you can get. So if you have a settlement agreement that looks good, it's a 10-page, and it has cameras, it has a signature ceremony. But when you look at what was the issue, because most of the time, the primary dispute that brings the parties to the table is not the actual dispute. Is a one that is below. But once the parties are before you and you understand what drove them apart, then you will get the what? The real dispute. And once you get the real dispute, your duty as a facilitator is to ensure that the parties have an enforceable agreement. And once an agreement is not enforceable, what do you need to do? You can rather have what you call a process flow, where you can say, these issues, they remain still sticky issues, but these are the low-hanging fruits. Let's agree on this. These ones are still remaining unresolved, but let's have a process flow how to deal with them going forward.
Can I add this?
Yes, please.
The issue here, you see, in terms of labor disputes and settlement, let's take, for example, a settlement of a person that is dismissed. If a person is dismissed and there's a settlement, then the parties separate. They go their separate ways. Now, a dispute between a trade union where there's a settlement agreement on the table, a trade union, let's say, for example, on conditions of service, and a community, those ones are different in that the parties will still retain a relationship. They still have to have an ongoing relationship. So in this instance, for example, in terms of mines and communities, we need to ensure that the relationship does not break down. So whatever settlement that you have needs to ensure that it's an ongoing relationship. As my colleague is saying, that you don't have to have a dispute that is going to create further disputes, or a dispute where the parties are only taking a break for further disputes. You have a settlement that ensures that the relationship is ongoing, one. Secondly, and critically, that the trust relationship between those parties, the parties that have a settlement, is maintained. There's a trust relationship because they still have a relationship that is ongoing, and they need to trust each other, and they are still going to have to work with each other on particular matters. Because as parties that have got that kind of a relationship, there will always be things that are coming up. And as my colleague is saying, that it's social dialogue. They need to be talking to each other on various things. And there are many ways that we have learned that we can be able to deal with this on an ongoing basis.
And most often, the shortfall with the government, or maybe sometimes the regulator, the shortfall comes from one of these processes. And I want to gauge your understanding on that. Is it the issue of capacity, the will, or coordination?
Remember, joint problem solving, the government has to make sure that is there. That is its job.
Correct.
Nothing else. Because government comes from a regulatory point of view. It comes from laws, policies, directives, isn't it?
Yes.
And once you have a law, a section 22 of the Mine Health Safety Act, there is a winner, there is a loser. And in the joint solving problem, you don't have a winner and a loser. You have all winners because the relationship has the purpose of joint problem solving is to strengthen the relationship, isn't it?
Yes.
It's an antibiotic to the relationship to make sure that the relationship is not weakened by what? By unnecessary conflicts. So once the regulator comes in, where he comes in from the point of what? Of regulating how things should be done. And that regulator is found doing what? Promoting facilitation in the process. Then in terms of a neutrality, in terms of confidence in that regulator, will the parties that are before the regulator be happy? Because once there is a fatality in the mine, the regulator comes in. Once the workers believe that they are not treated badly, the regulator comes in. Once the community believes that they are not benefiting from the mine, the regulator comes in. And he comes in to do what? To make a pronouncement, whether you win or whether you lose. And then if you place him closer to the process of joint problem solving, what is his credibility?
Advocates, this is quite, interesting listening to both of you. Would it be possible, I'm just gauging, can you walk us through one mining case where the agreement actually held after the cameras have left? What made the agreement stick? Because it is easy for people to act in front of the cameras. Once the cameras move away, the mediators are not there. What guarantees that the agreement will stick?
Without mentioning the name of the mines.
Please don't.
But what holds the agreement is leadership, nothing else. Leadership and maturity. The people that represent the mine must be matured. They cannot be seen preferring certain representative of the community at the expense of that. Let the community elect its own people and let the mine elect its own people. And these people, when they are around the table of negotiations, they need to treat each other with what? With respect. And when parties don't agree, they don't agree. Don't force them to agree. So that is why I said, then have what you call a process flow. Then for us to agree, that's why when you look at the LRA created what you call a advisory award, isn't it? You need to have something like that where somebody can come and look at the issues. But why is the advisory award in the LRA, the pickup on the process, why is it very low? It's very low because people, when they negotiate, they don't want to be told that they don't have a case. Why? Because the mine is going to become stronger, because the union is going to become stronger. Then it goes to leadership. Are people sitting and in a facilitation process in good faith? Are they really interested in resolving the problem? Are they really interested in having the turmoil in the community resolved? I'll go back and use the LRA.
Yes.
The LRA, when you look at the purpose of the LRA, it has what you call, the purpose of the LRA is to ensure that there's economic development. What is economic development? And when you look at the LRA, there are two things, two issues there that are very critical, and nobody's dealing with them. Economic development and social justice. Are we really having economic development and social justice in communities?
Okay. I would like to add.
Yes, Advocate, please.
If I may. What's critical in this instance that, as you put, that what will hold that agreement out of cameras? That the biggest issue here is whether the parties were talking to each other in good faith. That none of the parties was trying to outdo the other. That it was not to outthink the other. That when you have a settlement, both parties can have a settlement and say that we have done well together, and it's in the interest of all the parties. As I've said earlier, that remember that you have an ongoing relationship. You are not good. Don't have a relationship. Don't have an agreement where after a day or so, after a month, and realize, but we made a terrible mistake here. They've outthought us or they've outmaneuvered us. No, yes. You don't have, because you have an ongoing relationship. It's not like a divorce settlement. You are not divorced. You have an agreement and you have to live. And that kind of an agreement must be a living agreement. If there's a mistake, for example, both parties have to be able to get back together and say that here there's a mistake, and again, in good faith, be able to sit on the table that a mistake was made here. How do we correct that? Why? You have an ongoing relationship. Why? Because you have common interests. What is the common interest? Is what my colleague is saying, is economic development. And ensuring the issue that we speak a lot about, just a sec, and that is ensuring the issue of social justice.
Interesting. Advocate, what I'm hearing from you is that JPS's position itself is that of a neutral broker, yes. Right? Between the mines, communities, and government.
Yeah.
When has the neutrality been tested? How do we know that your neutrality as joint problem-solving savers gets tested? At what point do we know? And how do you protect that?
It's tested when a party negotiates in bad faith. It is tested when a party knows the real solution and it avoids it. I'll tell you why. I'll give you a simple example. In this country, we have what you call a minimum wage. That applies to crashes, applies to security. Has any 100 employers advanced the social media or any platform and thank government for a minimum wage? There's a resistance. Why? It is the type of economic relationship that the parties they have. Because one wants a service, but wants a service at a particular rate. The other one wants to tender a service and he wants more. This competition needs somebody to come and say, yes, you can have more. Because if you have more, it will then spells the demise of the party that you are engaged with. So it also goes to, it is tested when a party negotiates in bad faith. And how do you realize that a party negotiates in bad faith? Is when a party is called to the table and he becomes a post office.
What do you mean?
A post office, it means he takes the message from here, he says, I'm going to my seniors. And he comes back, my senior says no. Then what?
So the people who needs to come on the table, it must be the decision makers.
No. It must be people that are able to understand what is the issue and what are scenarios that they can map out. So that when they go to their seniors, they will go to their seniors and say, this scenario and that scenario will work. Because if you take executives and you place them in these meetings are prone to be long. The people that you appoint to be to engage with communities must be people that they know what they are doing. They must not be people that are coming to that meeting and they just find themselves writing a lot of notes, but they don't give scenarios. What makes a facilitator to be successful is when he explores scenarios that they will work or not work. In the absence of scenarios, a facilitator can't do anything. And the minute the facilitator start developing scenarios and trying to impose them, it is seen as pro one party.
Just one more question before we go towards conclusion. What happens if a particular party comes with prescriptive resolutions? They say, this is what we want, and it's either this or no way.
My colleague will tell you, and I don't want to mention the name of the company. We had, you remember, 2010. Yeah. And we had to phone somebody to say, hey,
yes,
the team that you sent here, you have sent the wrong team. And that person at least listened to us and replaced the negotiating team. So 2 things. When you are a facilitator, you need to be a brand. You need to be known. And you need to be known and understood for what you stand for. And once you conduct processes in a non-partisan manner, and your engagement must be driven by principles. Principles like social justice, decent work. Once you advance those issues and you advance them from a point of view of being cognizant of their impact on the parties. Because the parties, when they come to you, what they actually want is social justice, but they don't put it as social justice. They are saying our children are not working. We want work. That's social justice. So what you need to do when you take it to the mine or when you take it to the government is to say, government, where are sustainable programs that can create jobs in those communities? I always say, when are we starting to see uniforms or PPE being manufactured in communities by women and children and disabled? We are having what we call social supplier development. And if you look at the bulk of the money is pumped in what? In companies that are buying. They buy from manufacturers. But have you seen those manufacturing being brought into those communities on issues that women can do, on issues that disabled people can do? Once you do those programs, you alleviate what? Not everybody walks to a mine to look for a job. They start looking for a job from where? From those community cooperatives. And once they start looking work for those community cooperatives, then the mine has a breather. The mine is able to do and becomes sustainable, profitable. And once the mine is profitable, is when these community structures are doing what? Are assisting. Because once you have one person, that must provide work. Once you have one person, that must provide economic sustainability for companies in the society. Then it means you have a bottleneck relationship. And not everybody can go through the small hole, isn't it?
True.
So for you to do that, you need to expand what? Opportunities. And once opportunities are expanded, then it's where JPS is there to work on those scenarios, is where to work on those probabilities, and also do capacity building in terms of what? The community leaders. Do they understand what they're doing? The ER, do they understand their intervention? Do they understand the purpose of, are they keeping minutes?
Can I just say this? I don't know how far are we in relation to time, but I just want to say and emphasize that we got our neutrality jealously as mediators, as facilitators. That parties need to know that the people who have come to us or who have been recommended to us are neutral, are completely neutral in the circumstances. And now, and we need to have their trust. We need to have their trust in us. At least when they don't have trust in themselves, they must have trust at least with ISD, with us as facilitators, as mediators. And now one of the things is that parties can approach ISD, just in terms of the process, they can approach ISD and say, we have these issues. And now what they also need to do is that they mustn't, when the process has begun, come to us without the engagement of the other or without the other knowing. Come to us and report that these ones are doing this and they are. That's not our role. Our role is to be neutral. If there are things that need to be said, and if it's in relation to a process, then there are certain things that we can be able to do. We can say, okay, we're talking to each other now. We don't have to disclose. We disclose. That's when we're trying to resolve a dispute. I wanted to come back to the issue that we started with in relation to facilitation, in relation to minimizing risks.
Correct.
You see, in the workplace space, they've got forums. It's not in the mining industry they will have, where they've got monthly forums, and in those monthly forums, you don't necessarily have to go there and deal with disputes. That's where the risks are identified. That's where, as my colleague was saying, to look at what we have discussed previously, have we been able to deal with that on a regular basis? And if that has been dealt with, then you can put that aside. And if there's something else that needs to be looked at, then that you consider that. If there's a dispute, how do we deal with that kind of a dispute? Because you've got an ongoing relationship. So that is what what are they called in these forums? What are they called in the
community forums?
So you can
community engagement forums.
Community engagement forums. So in the workplace, there's a lot. Trade unions will have that. But how you engage with that, again, I need to emphasize trust and good faith. That's critical. It's a very critical thing that you need to have here.
Much appreciated, gentlemen.
But before you step off, don't forget what we called socio-economic rights. Because socio-economic rights, what are they trying to do? They are trying to open these benefits to these communities, to these citizens, the right to a clean environment, the right to education, the right to health. All those rights, if they are understood and the parties are claiming them, because some of the demands, it is access to socio-economic rights.
Correct.
And do communities understand how much are mines setting aside in terms of community development? The communities understand the partnership that these mines have with municipalities. Do they have them? Do they participate in those forums? They don't. And once you allow people to make demands and action them outside prescripts, it means you are creating a parallel structure. And will you sustain that parallel structure? That's where capacity building comes in, to make sure that before there is a dispute, you channel the parties to what? To sustainable platforms that engage in what? In preventing disputes becoming disputes.
What a wonderful way to close. Advocate, both of you have displayed that joint problem solving service is not only about facilitating and finding solutions where problems are, but you also offer an opportunity for capacity building on the side of the companies. Sometimes, and more often, you find yourself providing capacity also to the communities. But what you are guarding very carefully from listening to you is your neutrality and your independence. And having said that, I want to thank both of you for being here. And in future, we will invite you. There may be instances where one of you we are inviting because we have a head of industry, maybe a traditional leader in the room, maybe the regulator. It will be quite interesting to have one of you to come and unpack some of these things that we are discussing today. And I am cognizant for those who are interested to hear more about the work that they are doing. If you need their intervention, you can reach out to them through the Institute for Social Dialogue on www.isd.org.za. That's our website, and you will find all the details that you need there. You can also find us on different social media pages. Their availability, you can reach out to them. If you reach out to ISD, they should be able to respond to your issues or to get a confirmation or to start acting on it. Anything between 12 hours if it's an urgent case. But if it's not that urgent, it will take about 12 hours if it's an urgent case. And if it's not that urgent, it could take up to 24 hours for them to respond. And we are saying this because they are fairly hectic people, busy in their own right. But they are giving priority to resolving dispute that may be related to the mines, the community, and this is a high priority for us. Mm-hmm.
And is JPS going to deal with each and every structure? Mm-hmm. And each and every structure in the community is a different role. Traditional leadership, churches, businesses. So when you create these forums, you must be mindful that churches also play a role in mediating.
Religious leaders, call it religious leaders.
Yes, religious leaders. Yes. They play a role when there is a conflict in uniting the people. So you need to, at one stage, you need to understand that what is their role so that we don't overstep. And we also have the minds having relationships with what? With the traditional leaderships in the communities. And they've already formalized the relationships between them. Are you going to go to a community and start engaging people when the traditional leadership does not know your interventions? I think those are just things I just wanted to say. When you engage, you need to be mindful of those relationships. You need to be mindful of those structures and ensure that your intervention is within those parameters.
Those are the landmarks that we need to guard against
Yes.
for proper intervention. And I'm glad that you gentlemen, including the team that you work with, because I noticed that it is actually the two of you, but you have a complement of a team of 5. Would one of you want to just say who are the other members who could not be in the studio? We could only take the two of you because you are the most senior, but you have a complement of three other colleagues who could not be here with us.
Yeah.
Advocate, would you like to just say?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We have Advocate Matabu Makwela. We have Mr. Matala. And we also have got Advocate
Palisa Shai.
Palisa Shai.
Having said that, thank you, gentlemen, once more. And thanks to the Board of Institute for Social Dialogue and the Executive Director who are making this platform possible. And we hope to see you again in the near future with more from Institute for Social Dialogue. Adios.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.